Sophie de Bruyn was just 18 years old when she participated in the historic 1956 South African Women's March to the Union Buildings. Led by the likes of Lidon Goy, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, and Albertina Sisulu, amongst others. Now the last surviving leader of the Women's March, de Bruyn paid homage to those fallen stalwarts of the struggle who strives to improve the lot of women in this country.
I think we gather here to pay not only homage, but we come here for inspiration, and we come for sustenance, and also to pledge our allegiance for the values that they stood for. And as much as we have handed the baton over to the younger generation, I'd like to say that I am pleased to know and to see and to observe that they are indeed running with the banner, with that baton.
30 years since the end of apartheid and the ushering in of a new democratic dispensation, women are faced with challenges such as gender-based violence and femicide. According to official statistics, 1 in 5 women in relationships experience physical violence by a partner. Through the National Council on GBVF Bill, government has formally introduced new laws to protect women and children from abuse and violence. However, one of the gender rights activists, Mandisa Kanyile, argues that the introduction of a new law should be accompanied by more government's interventions to provide resources to reinforce the fight against the GBVF scourge.
Absolutely resourcing the response for gender-based violence and femicide, making sure that you have nurses based at Tutuzela care centers, making sure that the victim support units at police stations are actually manned by people who are sensitive towards survivors of gender-based violence, ensuring that there's adequate psychosocial support mechanisms available not just to victims, but also to the perpetrators themselves. We have prison systems in this country that don't even have proper rehabilitation programs and allow offenders to come back into communities and reoffend. Why are we not providing counseling? Adequate psychosocial support is one of the key things that is going to help us fight the scourge.
As women continue to bear the brunt of heading families and raising children, there have also been calls for the protection of girl children. Human Settlement Minister Mamuluku Kubai says much more still needs to be done to protect girl children and insulate them from socio-economic challenges such as lack of access to education and limited opportunities for leadership roles.
There are those that we need to also continue to support the boys so that they do not grow in an environment where they feel unloved. But I do think that there's a huge gap between the support that a boy child gets and the support that the girl child gets, especially when you go to townships, when you go to rural areas. That becomes so significant. Majority of them fall into the prey, becoming teenage pregnant. As teenage pregnant, we've seen the numbers going higher. And that's what we need to pay attention to, because these are a majority. And therefore, if we continue to support them, and that's why my call is not only to the young girl, but to mothers as well, to society, to say, let's protect a young girl. Not to be raped, not to drop out of school and have to become caregivers, but to support them to be able to get education, because it's many of us like me who education made it possible to rise in terms of my own professional career, but also in terms of the political lead.
According to the World Food Programme, women play an integral role in global food production. However, they experience more difficulties than men in gaining access to land and finance. It's against this background that businesswoman Gapsi Matenjwa had established a food, meat and poultry production farm to empower women and youth through the application of modern agriculture technologies. For her, this model of precision agriculture will allow women in mostly rural areas to use technology to mitigate the negative effects of climate change and optimize crop yields.
On food security, what is good is that this is not about wanting to supply retail only. This is also about food at home. When you have a garden, then you have constant food supply. I would recommend that not only women who are unemployed or women who are not skilled, whether you're skilled, semi-skilled or highly skilled, you still need to eat. And for me, why not have your own garden? You know, that's a challenge for all of us.
Fondly known as Auntie Sophie, this anti-apartheid legend remains optimistic about the future of post-apartheid South Africa.
We live now in a far more complex society than we did 50 years ago. But let us never forget the voice of the people. I thank you very much.
Tshepo Ikaneng, SABC News, Soweto.